Tourist towns across the country face the same vexing problem. Their workers just can't afford to live there. An array of potential solutions have been proposed and in many cases rolled out. But the problem is still stubbornly there. Workers have to live miles from where they work or just have to move away altogether. The Adirondacks is one of these places, and there's still so far to go for affordable housing. But at least one project with 4 new homes has a teensy answer. That's today's story of the day.
Support for Story of the Day comes from Long Run Wealth, an SEC-registered investment advisor in Lake Placid, providing comprehensive wealth management, retirement, and financial planning solutions. LongRunWealth.com. And the Devlin Inn and Suites, Lake Placid, welcoming families, athletes, and groups to the Olympic Village, offering Adirondack mountain views and dog-friendly accommodations. TheDevlinNY.com.
Hey, I'm David Sommerstein. It's Wednesday, January 21st. First up, Governor Kathy Hochul unveiled her budget proposal for next fiscal year yesterday. The $260 billion plan includes more investments in childcare and education, as well as funding to ease the impact of federal budget cuts and tariffs. And as Samuel King with the New York Public News Network reports, the plan is boosted by more than $10 billion in unexpected revenue.
Governor Kathy Hochul says the state's strong revenues mean her budget can invest in new programs without raising taxes. Those revenues are coming from continued consumer spending and strong returns on Wall Street.
And that's why we're able to invest more without asking New Yorkers to pay more. So let me be clear about something else. This is not an austerity budget, but it is a disciplined one. And we're continuing to invest in core services that New Yorkers rely on while keeping the growth of state operating funds at a responsible level.
The budget includes her child care proposals and boosts in school aid, as well as major investments like $300 million for economic development and revitalization in Rochester. But that good news was counteracted by cuts in federal spending. Hochul is proposing the state spend about 11% more on Medicaid to make up the difference.
The federal government was a reliable partner, making sure the funds were there. In just 1 year, the Trump administration has shattered that trust, and we're bearing the brunt of it.
Fiscal watchdogs like Andrew Ryan with the Citizens Budget Commission say Hochul should have used the extra revenues to protect against a future downturn.
What we're seeing here could be characterized as a missed opportunity budget. With strong revenues and smart spending priorities, if we shift money from lower priority spending, we can stabilize the budget, be prepared for the feds, and support affordability programs.
Hochul's proposal is just the first step in the process. Now the Assembly and Senate will come up with their own budget plans. Assembly Speaker Carl Hastie calls the governor's budget a, quote, good opening. And Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins says her conference hasn't ruled out tax increases.
You know, as we go through the process, we always have progressive taxes on the table. We always have revenue possibilities on the table. So we'll have to see what happens.
Republicans like State Senator Stephen Chan of Brooklyn criticized the spending in Hochul's plan, saying the governor should have provided more relief to taxpayers and taken steps to rein in spending.
I'm sure that the proposed $260 billion, that's going to grow. In comparison to states like Texas and Florida, we're spending much more per capita.
The budget is due by April 1st. In recent years, that deadline has passed without a budget. Hochul indicated that this year may be no different. In Albany, I'm Samuel King for the New York Public News Network.
In Governor Hochul's State of the State address last week, she committed an additional $250 million towards affordable housing development. Affordable housing is a huge issue across the North Country's tourism areas, where local workers have found it increasingly difficult to afford buying a home. Think nurses, teachers, social workers, restaurant workers. Today, we meet one of those people. He found a permanent home in the heart of the Adirondack High Peaks at a small affordable housing project of just 4 homes in downtown Keene. Amy Feiereisel reports on a tiny success story.
Purchasing a home in the small community of Keene is like a dream come true for 30-year-old Dakota Inman. He grew up in Syracuse, but spent a lot of his childhood and early adulthood visiting this area.
When I was in college, it was pretty much in Keene, camping at Chapel Pond, pretty much every weekend throughout my early 20s.
Inman went to school to be a teacher and specifically looked for open jobs in the Adirondacks. When he found one in the Ausable Valley Central School District 6 years ago, he was thrilled. He's an 8th grade English teacher and wrestling coach there. But finding and keeping housing has been a real issue. He found his first apartment in Lake Placid through word of mouth.
Where I was there for a year, it turned into an Airbnb, got kicked out. I think that first move was very concerning. It was like, oh, that's what life's like in a mountain town.
The number of short-term rental properties listed on sites like Airbnb and Vrbo has increased dramatically in the Adirondacks over the last decade. And the average price of a home in Essex County rose by more than 50% between 2019 and 2022. Inman says he's watched a lot of his peers, people who had jobs and lives here and wanted to stay, end up leaving. That includes other teachers.
We're all in the same bubble, or it's like you went to school, you got a master's, you work with kids, you're doing all these right things, but you can't actually afford to live in the community you're servicing in, which that's tough.
So when he heard about a small housing development in Keene targeted towards people like him, he pursued the opportunity. Inman moved into his first home in Both Meadow Trail, purchased for $160,000 in early December.
Being a new homeowner, a place that I've always wanted to live in, and knowing that I'm here and I'm going to be here, it's pretty awesome.
Inman is very much who Adirondack Roots, the housing nonprofit that developed the Both Meadow Trail project, envisioned living here. They wanted to create units for people who didn't qualify for low-income housing assistance or programs like SNAP and Medicaid, but who were still struggling to afford long-term housing in the area. To apply to buy one of these homes, for example, a single person had to make less than $64,000 a year. Caitlin Wargo is the interim executive director for Adirondack Roots.
There's a number of housing studies that have shown we need thousands of units of housing that are attainable for the working people of the Adirondacks to be able to afford to live.
A 2023 study by the Lake Champlain-Lake George Regional Planning Board found that 7,500 additional housing units are needed for the local workforce in Essex, Hamilton, Franklin, and Clinton counties. Both Meadow Trail is a drop in the bucket towards that goal. It's just 4 houses. And even those were a tall order, says Wargo, a 2-decades-long journey. It started when former town supervisor Tom Both and his wife Alana sold a piece of land in downtown Keene to Adirondack Roots, then called the Housing Assistance Program of Essex County. Wargo called it a favorable price.
A tremendous discount because they wanted it to be used someday for workforce housing.
That was the easy part. Adirondack Roots had to buy more land for access, demolish a building with asbestos in it. And the price of building the homes was always going to cost more than what moderate-income people could afford to pay.
The finances for affordable housing developments, they actually don't pencil out for developers. And that's one of the reasons why it takes so long, is you need to be able to access different sources of funding.
It was only through community donations and 2 state programs that Adirondack Roots was able to spend $400,000 per house, but sell them for $160,000. This was a new experience for Adirondack Roots, which largely deals with housing repair and mobile home replacement. Both Meadow Trail was their first new build in decades. But Wargo says the need for this housing is real. They had over 30 applications for the 4 homes.
Each one of those new residents, new homeowners, has a story of having to move out of their rental because it was being sold out from under them. The rent was going up so high. Even during the process of closing, one of the new owners had to move.
That's why the organization is looking to replicate the Both Meadow Trail model. They're in the pre-development stage in a few different communities. Back in Keene, Dakota Inman says it feels incredible to know he owns this home, can afford his mortgage, and most importantly, gets to stay in the Adirondacks.
The reality is if I couldn't find a place to live, I was probably going to have to leave at some point. And that 160 mark really allows me to live here, to teach here, and also kind of hold on to the reason why I'm here, which is to recreate.
By coincidence, most of Inman's new neighbors are also educators and feel they've finally landed in their long-term home. Amy Feiereisel, North Country Public Radio in downtown Keene.
Music today by Tim Ellifritz of Johnsburg and Ursa and the Major Key of Plattsburgh. I'm David Summerstein, North Country Public Radio.